The Devil's Plan is a high IQ reality game show that's miles beyond anything else I've seen. I covered the first game they played on the show called The Virus Game in a different video, but now that I've seen all of season 1, I'm dying to tell you about a few of the players and just how they played this game. The Devil's Plan is a complete package. On the one hand, it's a series of what are basically surprisingly complex board games, and I say that in a positive way. It shows respect for the players and respect for the audience that we get to see such interesting games. So there is really good game design on display here, but there's more than that going on. There's an excellent cast. There's great production values and editing, and the show packs an emotional punch, which is a lot stronger, I think, than you would expect. You might want to go watch all of season 1 and then come back to this video. Or if not, you can stick around and I will tell you about one player's really unusual strategy, another player's incredible big move, and some notes on why there's so much crying in this seemingly cerebral game. First, I want to tell you about the strategy used by the player Orbit. I think it's hard to start any other way than this because his strategy shaped so much of what happened on this show. But was his strategy insane and wrong-headed, or was it secretly genius? Let's look at it through a few different lenses, and I'll let you decide. To understand Orbit's strategy, first you have to know something about the basic structure of the show. So this is a reality game show competition where there are initially 12 contestants, and as they compete in various board game style games, eventually they get whittled down to just one winner. There are two different types of competitions in this show. One of them is called a main match and the other is called a prize match. The point of a main match is that players are all competing against each other in order to win the show's currency, which is called pieces. So you might win 1 or 2 or 3 pieces if you did really well in one of these main matches. The prize matches are different. In those, people are not competing against each other. Everyone is on the same team, cooperating, all trying to complete the challenge as a team. And if they do complete it, then they increase the prize pool for whoever eventually wins the entire Devil's Plan show. It's also sometimes possible to win some pieces in the prize matches too. There's 2 things you should know that happen at the end of each main match. First is any players that end up with 0 pieces are instantly eliminated from the show. And second, after that elimination, the 2 players with the fewest number of pieces have to go to jail for 1 day. And when I say that, I mean they actually go to a jail inside this show. It looks like it's built into a cave and they hardly have anything to do. And they're given food that's not nearly as good as the food the rest of the people on the show get. So now that you know all that, you're ready to hear about Orbit's strategy. His strategy is to prevent people from being eliminated. Yes, really, we're talking about a competition show where in order to win, everyone else has to be eliminated. Orbit's strategy is to prevent anyone from being eliminated. But it goes beyond just preventing eliminations because of how the eliminations work. He also has to manipulate the pieces, the currency of the game. If anyone is ever dangerously close to getting to 0 pieces, he has to make moves in the game that will help them get pieces. He also wants to generally generate as many pieces as possible, regardless of who they go to, with a belief that they will then be redistributed to the people who need them the most. I don't know where to even begin discussing this strategy, but I will say that Orbit is very smart. He knows a lot about science, a lot about math. When it comes to actually playing all the games and challenges in the Devil's Plan, he is incredible at it. He basically runs these games like half the time. So I have a lot of respect for Orbit intellectually, and I like him, but this strategy is nuts. And I'm going to go further than that. It's not just that it's nuts. There is a real lack of self-reflection on display here from Orbit and a lack of understanding how to communicate with other humans, I think. His strategy is subverting the point of the show, right? It's undermining the competition. And that's completely fine if that's what he wants to do. But where it starts to become really suspicious is when he expects that of everyone else and just barks out orders to them about it. And that's exactly what he does in the first prize match. In this one, they have to put together a series of puzzles, and whoever completes the puzzles gets some pieces. But the players are spinning around on one of those roundabout merry-go-round things, so it's sort of hard to know who's going to actually get the piece. The way the pieces are handed out in this prize match, it means that more pieces in total go to the players if just one or two people solve the puzzle a lot of times, as opposed to several different people each solving one puzzle. And that's fine, but let's see Orbit ordering everyone around to make sure that one person gets all the pieces.
And if we can, we should get Joon to be the solver. Because the pieces only get awarded on multiple successful attempts. I thought we'd be able to share the pieces between us if we accumulated enough, since I heard that trading between players was allowed in the living area.
I wondered, why would we do that? Is he trying to get one if Joon receives two? I was thinking that, but then I just brushed it off. Let's focus on the puzzle.
And here he is again, telling everyone what to do.
The pieces are very important, but we may end up not earning any pieces here. We need someone that's completed the puzzle at least twice.
Right.
And now we have 3 people on either side, so let's coordinate our efforts to let those people take the win when their turn draws near.
Frankly, I think it's rude for him to push this view on the other players without any kind of consent. If he had said ahead of time what his philosophy was and what his plan was and invited everyone to go along with it, I think that would have been really interesting. But he didn't do that. He just assumed that this was what we're doing and kind of took charge. He didn't have their consent. And I think it's weird. And here he is pushing this plan even more when finally he gets some pushback and the other players are like, hey, let's not do that.
I'm super dissatisfied. I'm so angry right now. Orbit kept going, let Tongjae have it, let Tongjae have it, and making Seok-jin stop, right? Seok-jin graciously conceded, helping Tongjae win. But as we've all seen from the way he played the game today, he's a very crafty player, and he poses a significant threat to the group, and he's in first place. This is not the best place to be right now.
To be honest, we started getting down in the middle of the game, and everyone lost their will to win.
There's no guarantee that the person holding the pieces would redistribute them later on.
We should discuss our strategy again.
Let's say we continue this way and receive more of the pieces. Then we should be able to use those pieces for a good cause, correct? We could even give them to the ones imprisoned right now.
No one got eliminated, but soon we'll have to start making deals using pieces.
Exactly. Instead of receiving no pieces, having many pieces could save people from elimination.
But who benefits from all this?
I think we should all cooperate so we can solve the puzzles, but allow the final solver to keep the pieces.
So what do you all think of randomly handing out the pieces we win in this round?
I don't like that idea.
I don't think randomly is the best way.
Let's just play according to the original rules and give it everything we've got.
That's how you guys feel? Sure, let's do that. It's disappointing. I just wanted us to work together to gain as many pieces as possible.
That's just a few examples. I'm not going to bother showing you more. There are a lot more examples of this, though. He sticks to this philosophy and he keeps doing his best to save anyone from being eliminated. What's so bizarre about it is that he doesn't seem to have any end game, and no one really presses him on that. Like, what are we doing here? The only way this show ends is when people are eliminated, and they inevitably will be eliminated. So what is the point? Several players do their best to not really comment much on how weird this whole plan is. In some cases, Orbit actually saved them from elimination, so they don't really want to say anything. In other cases, it's more of a wait and see. Things aren't really dire yet, so we'll just let them play out and see how it goes. But then later in the game, there becomes several times when a player really needs to do X move because that's the smartest thing for them to do. And Orbit's like, no, there's this weak person who's going to be eliminated if you do that. And so we've got to change things around and not let them be eliminated. And it starts to become a problem. Even the showrunner of the Devil's Plan didn't expect or really like Orbit's strategy. He said about Orbit in an interview, "I know he was not a competitive person before, but I did not expect him to lead the game that way. Although it wasn't the direction I wanted, there was nothing I could do. It was a new approach that was not seen in survival shows before, so I think it's meaningful to have a new narrative." I thought about what would I do if I were on this show, and it reached a point where I would have really spoken up harshly. I would gather the whole cast together and say, hey, I have a proposal to make. None of us wants to be jerks. We all want to get along. Nobody wants to betray anyone unless we really have to. I think we all get that. So I'm going to make a proposal that is not supposed to be a common thing. It's not what I'm proposing that we do from now on. It's just a one-time thing. And I propose that we all isolate Orbit and do our best to get him eliminated, because He is sanctimonious, annoying, and has a crazy plan that's really ruining a lot of the other players' chances to win on this show. Now, unlike Orbit, I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I'm just floating that idea because I think there's a pretty likely chance that the majority of people here agree with that, and somebody has to go. So why don't we all decide it's going to be Orbit? I think Orbit got incredibly close to that happening, but he managed to stay just below the threshold of annoyance that triggered a mutiny. I mentioned before that even though I really like him and respect his intelligence, I think that there is a lack of self-reflection going on. Part of this has to do with what is the plan even? If step 1 is no one is eliminated, and then the final step 3, let's say, is one person wins the entire show, then what is the step 2? Question mark? It just doesn't make any basic sense. And the second lack of self-awareness is in just assuming that everybody else wants to go along with that and kind of imposing his views on them. But there's even a third level of lack of self-awareness going on, and that has to do with alliances. So of course, alliances formed in this show, and they shift here and there as opportunities change. But at one point, Orbit says, we've got to make sure that this person over here is eliminated because they are in an alliance and it's dangerous. What he means is like his flock of sheep is threatened by the wolf. And so we've got to pool our resources and votes and get rid of someone over there because they have an alliance. And someone said, yeah, but Orbit, you have an alliance too. And he's like, no, I don't have an alliance. They have an alliance. So somehow Orbit's group of people who coordinate their votes and resources is not an alliance because, you know, it's for a saintly goal, I guess. But now I want to think about Orbit's plan in a different light. The first and most obvious thing about it, and I think this is really what drives Orbit to do it, is that he gets to be a nice guy. He gets to try to be likable because he's trying to help everybody. And furthermore, people owe him favors because he saves them all the time. So even though he doesn't call it an alliance or think of it as an alliance, it absolutely is an alliance that he's building. So maybe from a purely strategic perspective, it makes sense to have several other players in the game feel like they owe you something. And for them to be in an alliance in more of a real way than just something they agreed to, it has to do with the actions that you did to save them. So it could be that this strategy is not even intended to go the whole way, because that wouldn't make any sense, but it's intended to place him in the mid-game in a powerful position where he's the head of an alliance. So is this seemingly stupid plan actually very shrewd and something that he's really thought through? We get to see the answer to that when the player Shi-won brutally lays into him.
Shi-won, we really never ended up seeing eye to eye in all our time here.
Why would the whole time we're still?
You know my thing. Protect the weak, ensure as many survive the game as possible.
For sure.
But to be honest, Orbit, I'm not so sure I buy it anymore hearing you say that. To me, it almost looks as though you're hiding behind that mantra to eliminate your competition. That's what I'm seeing. It looks like you're saving all the players that are easier for you to manipulate. And the ones that aren't, you make sure that they fall out.
What you just said about my competition here, I never really thought about that. To protect the weak, you have to get rid of those that can win. That's what protecting them means.
Well, someone has to win this game in the end. You're saying what, you choose who wins?
No, I'm not the authority.
Right?
I'll try my best until that time comes.
Right, so...
Besides, if this goal wasn't my...
Okay then, to sum it up, under the pretense of protecting the weak, you'll take out your strongest rivals, and then you're going to make sure that someone from your inner circle is the one who ends up winning the devil's plan.
It's such a good point, and thank you for pointing that out, Shi-won. What Orbit is really doing is eliminating the strong players because, you know, they're the wolves that are going to get his sheep, and leaving just the weakest players so that he himself can easily beat them. But as you see from his reaction, he didn't even think that through. It didn't even occur to him that that's what he's doing. But it's accidentally a very shrewd plan, and she really is right about the effect that his plan is having. I want to show you another player's take on this. The player is Seok-jin, and he has kind of a weird opinion.
We all thought of Tongjae as a strong contender, so we had no choice. What could we...
You could have just sent him to prison. I personally like to see skill-based eliminations if possible.
So you wanted Tongjae to stay in the game because he's good at these games?
I think He could have made it to first or second place. It sucks for him to go so early.
Yeah, I totally see your point.
On the very first day, I hoped most would survive to the second or third day, and I thought those that don't contribute should be the ones that get eliminated.
But then the people who couldn't do the math today would have been left to die. That would have left a bad taste in my mouth.
Instead, we lost the one best at it.
Huh?
The best at math is the one who got eliminated.
I don't know. I didn't find these calculations that...
To be honest, when I saw the scoreboard, that Hae-sung had 1 and Tongjae had 0, I really resented the other team. To save 5 people, they eliminated an ace player way too quickly. It's so disappointing. It's like in soccer, if Brazil got knocked out in the round of 16. Yeah.
On the one hand, Seok-jin is basically reinforcing what Siwon said earlier. He's saying that Orbit's supposedly good guy plan just so happened to eliminate one of the strongest players and perhaps the strongest player when it comes to math. But Seok-jin's plan is also pretty surprising to hear, because what he's saying is that he wants the strongest players to remain and the weakest players to be kicked off the show. So what exactly? So that the show has more entertainment value, so that merit succeeds? It really sounds like he's in the audience of the show and has forgotten that he's a competitor on the show. Because if he was a competitor and wanted to win, he would, of course, want to get rid of all those strongest players. But this really offended him. I think at this point in the competition, Seok-jin doesn't even see himself as a serious competitor who is capable of winning the whole thing. I think he sees himself actually more like the audience. And in real life, he's an actor. So I know he's thinking about how all this is going to play out later. And maybe he just wants there to be more entertainment value, which would be had by the strongest players making it to the end. It's pretty interesting he made that comment, though, considering what happens later. And now I want to shift to the next subject, which is the big play made by Seok-jin himself. I have to prepare you for Seok-jin's big move. Now, there is a lot going on here and a lot that I have to explain for you to get it, but I think it's totally worth it. When he does this move, the other players on the show have no idea why he did it or what's going on. And even his closest ally has no idea why he did it either. He bamboozled everybody. His big move happens in the main match called the grass laying game. Going into this match, you should know that his closest alliance is the player Siwon. And before this, Siwon and the player Yeon-woo, who is a professional Go player, by the way, got much closer. And Siwon was really trying to bring Yeon-woo, the Go player, into the fold and into the alliance. Seok-jin knew that. He knew going into this main match that these two players are really on his side. Now you have to know what's going on with this grass laying game. In this game, players take turns placing tiles on a big board. And what they're trying to do is build squares of pieces in their own territory. You have to build at least a 5x5 square in order to not lose any pieces. The Go player Yeon-woo is especially notable here because she went into this having only one piece. So if she cannot make a 5x5, then she will be eliminated from the show. The bigger the square that you build above 5x5, the more pieces you get. And in addition to that, if you alone have this single largest square of territory, you get a bonus 4 pieces, which is a huge amount of pieces. If 2 or 3 people are tied for the largest, though, then each of them gets only a bonus of 1. And if 4 or more players are tied for the most, then nobody gets any bonus. A couple more things you should know for this next clip. First is when it's your turn, you're supposed to take the far left piece on the table to add to your territory. But if you spend an exchange token, then you can actually pick any of the pieces on the table to add to your territory. And to get an exchange token, you have to pay a piece, a very valuable currency. Also, at the end of this, when all of the tiles are placed, there's a last chance where each player can, if they want, spend 1 piece to get a 1x1 tile to add to their territory to help fill in any holes. And finally, you should know that there are some special tiles on the table, and one comes up in the next clip. It is a robber square, and if you surround that completely, then you actually have to steal a tile from another player and then add it to your territory. We're getting towards the end of this game. It's one of the final turns. It's not quite over yet, and it's Seok-jin's turn to play.
Seok-jin, please place a grass tile.
This right here?
Seok-jin.
Huh?
It can work.
Where? 84?
You can rob someone. I noticed that the only people with a 6x6 were Tongju and Yumin. If Seok-jin robbed a tile from Tongju right at the end, Yumin would finish first and get 4 pieces. We can win by robbing. If you cover this, you can steal a tile at the end.
Oh.
That way Yumin could take first place by herself.
Can we try placing it?
Yes, you can.
Like this, and fill this spot.
But then we need 2 pieces.
That'll change what we're doing.
One each, me and you.
Now
Then-
what do we do?
Should we try it?
Okay.
I'd like to buy one. Coupon?
Will you buy an exchange coupon?
Yes. Here you go.
Oh, they bought that thing.
Wait a minute, what's going on?
If he fills that space, he gets the robbery square.
Oh.
That adds another twist.
So as you saw, Joon Bin, who is a big YouTuber in real life, by the way, has a plan that he's trying to get Seok-jin to go along with. Joon Bin sees that there's 2 players on the board that have a 6x6, and one of those players, Yu Min, is aligned with him. So he really wants Yu Min to get that massive 4-piece bonus by having the single largest territory. He's saying, hey, Seok-jin, why don't you exchange to get this other tile? Because that's going to let you later on get this robber piece, and then you could screw over the other girl so that my partner can have the only 6x6. That's basically what he's saying. And Joon Bin is so into this plan that he's financing it himself. He actually bought the exchange token for Seok-jin to do this. But just a few turns later, Joon Bin's plan falls apart. The plan was based on the idea that he could get his teammate to be the only one with the uniquely largest territory, but right after that, someone else got a 6x6, and so now there's just too many players with 6x6. And now it's time for Seok-jin's big move. So all the tiles have been placed, and there's a last chance where Seok-jin can spend 1 piece to get a 1x1 tile, and he does so, and as expected, he puts it where he has to put it, so he gets that robber token, and now he can steal a tile from another player. Joon Bin realizes that the original plan is now shot, so he's not quite sure who should be stolen from. The players get nervous as they realize that Seok-jin has an incredible amount of power in his hands at this moment. He can choose who is going to end up having the fewest pieces this round and go to jail. He can also choose to just straight up eliminate people if he wants. When he walks around the table making everyone nervous, some players think it's an act because he is an actor after all, but it's not. He's figuring it out. He's formulating that plan right now.
Seok-jin Ha, you have gained a robbery square. Seok-jin Ha, you may steal 1 tile.
Take it from whoever's going to prison.
Right. He gets to send someone
Based
to
on
prison.
pieces.
Yan-U's locked in for prison,
I'm
just so you know.
definitely going.
That's 1.
That's 2, so I mean, that's 1.
So send someone to prison to go with Yanu.
I really don't want to go to prison.
Either off to prison or send them home for good. It wasn't just about going to prison or not. He could outright eliminate someone. For good. No one had more than 3 pieces. So he could send anyone here packing with 1 fell swoop. Even I was on the chopping block. Where's he going right now?
Wow.
Where's he going? No way. No way.
Seok-jin, please, make
They're just
yourself at
chilling.
home. I got you a plate, so dig in.
Yeah,
Dig in.
A plate.
I got you a plate.
I've got some celery and kale.
Nothing too tasty,
It's Mediterranean
I see.
cuisine.
Ugh, stop acting. What are you, an actor? Making everyone nervous.
I'm losing it.
I'm pretty sure one question on his mind is, could he increase his territory to a 6x6? He would need a very specific kind of weirdly shaped tile in order to do that. And as far as I can tell, the only tile on the entire board that would be capable of doing that is Orbit's. But the problem is that Orbit's piece actually doesn't quite fit. There's a rule that says you can't place a tile if it would go right up against another player's tile. And I think that's just so it doesn't look confusing from a bird's eye view. So actually, I don't think it's possible for him to make a 6x6, but that's not even most of what he's thinking about right here. So here's what he does.
I'm sorry, Yanu.
Yanu?
I'm sorry, Yanu.
Yanu?
For real?
Wow.
I see. You want to eliminate me.
Wow.
Nobody knows what's going on. Why did he do this?
Seriously.
Guess I'm going home.
I'm sorry.
It is what it is. But to be honest,
Yanu, Yanu.
Oh, come on.
hate that
Don't be
prison.
like that.
Why are you crying?
Hey,
Dude.
why are you crying now? Hey, why are you crying,
I cry when I
Seok-jin?
see others cry. Hey, it's not because I'm sad, okay?
We were pretty awesome at the end, though,
That's why I don't have any regrets.
right?
I really have no regrets today.
You were rad.
I chipped in to make Yumin win. The game. You eliminated Yanu.
Come on, no regrets. You were seriously amazing today. You were so cool.
I'm just happy I got to play
Yeah.
like that at the end.
Right? That was so cool.
Shiwan can't believe it. What a betrayal. I mean, the Go player was supposed to be on our team, and now you eliminated her, Seok-jin?
You didn't have to do
Hey,
this, though.
come on,
Not
it's
easy,
okay.
it's not
Don't
easy.
cry. Why are you crying?
Did you do this just on a whim for fun? You knew that she was on my team. I really bared my heart to Seok-jin and told him everything. God, really? You really can't trust anyone.
Joon can't believe it either.
I think I may have placed too much trust in Seok-jin. Did he seriously pull off the most unexpected betrayal in the entire history of the Devil's Plan? I can't believe it. I even sacrificed my peace for that. This is just plain wrong.
And everyone is extra confused at the end when the show's announcer says who has to go to prison.
Here is the current player peace count. For having the lowest peace count, Seok-jin and Shiwan,
What?
please head towards the prison.
What is this?
Please make your way to prison.
Huh? Who?
Who?
You're going to prison?
Why?
You're
What?
going?
What's with them?
The reason players are really confused here is partly to do with it being a bit hard to track exactly how many pieces everybody has. Some players are gaining pieces at the end of this thing. Some players spent pieces in order to buy exchange tokens and so on. So how many pieces does each person have and who's going to end up in prison exactly? But the extra layer on top of this is that Seok-jin had an incredible amount of power here. And wait, what? It turns out that he and Shiwan are going to jail? Like, that can't be the right result. Why did he choose this? All right, buckle up. I'm going to tell you why. Let's rewind and see what led us to this point. First, Shiwan and Seok-jin discovered that the pieces that you win in all these competitions, the physical metal token that they give you, they're actually not all the same. There's 3 different kinds that have notches in different places. And so they discovered that you can fit them together into a cube, which is some kind of key.
Three pieces from 3 rounds, all with different shapes, combined together to become the beautiful key with the power to unlock the Devil's Plan's deepest secret.
Later on, Shiwan was in prison and she learned this.
Shiwan, check this out.
I thought that there might be something in the prison. And even if there wasn't, I wanted to see for myself.
Look. We need the password.
Huh? But in prison, I ended up finding exactly what I wanted.
Meanwhile, Seok-jin, not in prison and separated from Shiwan, happened to learn the same thing.
Some kind of
Yeah,
keypad.
0 through 9, you know?
Like a phone?
Seok-jin, hearing about the keypad, realized immediately that the cube must somehow contain numbers. He examines the cube more closely and discovers the code. His partner Shiwan returns from prison and then the grass laying game starts, but Seok-jin doesn't have a chance to tell her about any of this. So now it makes total sense. Seok-jin alone knew the code to that keypad. And even if he had a moment to tell Shiwan what the code was before she went to jail, that probably wouldn't be good enough, because who knows what you get for opening it. Maybe what you get isn't something that can be shared. So when everything lined up that it was possible to contrive an ending such that Shiwan and he were the ones who went to jail, it was too perfect to pass up. Now, you all know that, but the rest of the cast at the time didn't know any of this. And I think it's hilarious that they all managed to figure it out just based on something that Sengwan said. Now, Sengwan is pretty clueless and he doesn't even know what he knows. But when he spills the beans just a little bit, it allows the rest of the players to immediately put the entire picture together.
So
Huh?
I'm not sure if I should say.
What? Just say it. Tell me.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I shouldn't tell, but
What can't you tell us?
so...
Tell us what you and Shiwon did last night.
Well, Shiwon seemed to know something about the prison, so we got to talking.
Last night.
In prison?
So we got to talking, and I showed her the safe.
Okay.
And that's when she started cheering and flipping out and stuff, like, this is it, so this is what it was. Basically, she found something out here that pointed to something in there. And she...
Okay.
So Shiwon found something?
And Shiwon shared this with Seok-jin. They found the code.
Well, I don't know the specifics, but I don't think they found the code. If she had, she would have tried it.
That's right.
Right away.
She would have
Right,
cracked
but
it.
she went
but
back in.
She said she needed one more piece to figure it out.
I get it now. So last night, Seok-jin seemed pretty down, real low energy. And I figured he must be going through a lot. So I entered his room to console him, and he freaked out. Seok-jin cracked the code.
Right. She said that the two of them worked on it and figured out the secret of the pieces.
So Seok-jin had no choice but to eliminate Yanu because he had to go to prison with Shiwon.
They figured that together they could solve it for
Right.
sure. So here, 1, 2, 3. So you use these 3 pieces together.
Whoa, this is insane.
So we had pieces.
Got it.
Whoa,
How
really?
did you do that?
I got it.
Oh, wow.
I think this will get us numbers. There's gotta be something on
That's
these grooves.
crazy.
Right?
The fact that they did this alone.
Insane.
So cool.
So what exciting thing happens when they typed in the correct code? Well, they got a secret passage. And in that secret passage, they found a door with this cryptic text on it.
What even
Look,
is
there's
this?
something here. By playing one game in this room, you will be able to change your fate. If by the grace of the gods you miraculously succeed, your fate at the edge of a cliff will blossom into radiant glory. However, if you lose this game, your journey will end here, and your name will disappear.
So it's a risky challenge where you either get eliminated or get some kind of huge reward, and Shiwon decided that she would go first. It turns out that the challenge is to play a game of Connect 5 with this really creepy hooded person. The catch is that the colors of the pieces are all mixed up, so it's really hard to tell whose pieces are whose. Shiwon did her best, but she was eliminated here. The rule said that if Seok-jin wants to accept this challenge as well, he has to wait till the following morning. But he can't really prepare because he has no idea what the game would even be. Or does he?
So I got a little glimpse from behind. I saw what awaited her. 5 in a row. They had colored pieces. It seemed like 5 in a row, but where you can't see the colors of the stones. I had to do something, so I took these three pieces of paper I brought in and whipped up some columns and played some Gomoku matches against myself.
After studying all night, here is how he did.
You have won.
So I started simply by creating 2 lines of 4, but then I noticed they were playing at such a simple surface level, so I spaced some out. If my opponent didn't cut me off, I'd be able to connect 4 pieces. Instead of blocking me, they just made a line of 4. I thought there's no way I'm mistaken, so I made my move and...
You have won. What? For winning, you will be given 10 pieces.
Oh my god!
Please return to your cell.
Just so you know, 10 pieces is a ridiculous amount of pieces in this game. So that's a lot of crying. I am not going to make fun of him for 1 second for crying. If you saw what he and the other people in the show went through, you'd understand why they're crying. A lot of people cry. Here's some more shots of that.
I felt so weak. I let other people totally sway and control me. And I didn't even know what decision to make.
Hey, come on. Not you two.
It's okay. Don't
Seriously.
cry.
And some more.
I mean, can you at least tell me if you know my number?
I didn't betray you.
I didn't betray you either.
Right.
Shiwon cries so much that I started referring to her as the crying girl.
So please don't cry.
At one point, another player, Dongju, calls out some players for crying, saying, "What's the point?"
I'm also stressed out. It's really hard on me as well, but sending them off, then crying about it's a bit... then why'd you get them eliminated?
And here's Dongju later that same day.
Dongju, are you alright? What's wrong? Huh? What is it?
I don't know. All this drama?
The reason that all this crying is happening is that the emotional bonds between these players became a lot stronger than they realized was going to happen on a game show. For starters, the 12 of them were completely isolated from the outside world. No phones or computers or anything like that. So their world just became the 12 of them. Also, each one had a roommate. They were all put in pairs, and some bonds formed from that. The mechanic of the prison was also very powerful for forming bonds, and that's not a mistake. I think it's obviously by design from the showrunners. Even the players on the show understood that when they sent 2 people to prison, that they were going to probably come back with an alliance or much closer than they were before. And then there's the threshold effect that Orbit explains to us.
Ever heard of the threshold effect? So when we move between rooms, sometimes we stop and go. Why did I come here? You just forget it. Once you cross the threshold and the boundaries of your environment shift, that wipes your slate clean so you can have new experiences, new memories, etc. That's why they made this.
A separated game area.
The moment this opens and we walk past that threshold, we leave all our happy memories in here. And we're completely focused on the other side. I bet this is to leverage the threshold effect.
I think he's exactly right there, and that the physical design of the set allowed the players to kind of set aside the animosity that they might have felt during the competitions the rest of the time when they were in the living area. And they got so close to each other that when someone else was eliminated, it just really stung. This show had one more trick about pulling on our emotional heartstrings at the end. And it's not something I've seen before exactly. Survivor does it a little bit, but not really in the same way. Once it was down to the final 2 contestants, but before they had to compete in the grand finals, all of the rest of the cast was invited back, and they each got to make their entrance one by one in the order that they were eliminated, each one getting a few minutes to talk with everyone. So it's like a party. And it was so nostalgic and so emotional to see everyone connect again. And I thought the most powerful part of it all, and I'm not sure if it was scripted or if they came up with this themselves, but once everybody was there, they all went around one by one and introduced themselves in the same way that they had introduced themselves the very first episode of the show when they didn't know each other. But there was so much power behind hearing those introduction words again once you knew who these people were and everything they had been through. It made me think of the T.S. Eliot quote, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the first time." It's good stuff. One last thing, I can't help but show this clip of Siwon.
I don't think I can trust anymore. I used to be such a happy person. Such a happy person.
If you're out there, Siwon, I want you to know that I have nothing but respect. You took a big risk going into that last elimination challenge, but you had to do it. You had to go for it. And if I'm ever in a stressful situation like that, I would want you on my team. Amazing play by Seok-jin and Orbit. You kept it interesting the whole time. If you enjoyed this story, then you might also enjoy my tabletop games at sirlingames.com.